So there are two components to well-being, and that is, we describe those as feeling good and functioning well. So you need to be able to feel good, but that isn't sufficient for well-being. It's actually broader than that. And by that we mean the functioning well bit is about how we manage to show up in our daily lives. So when we come to school, do we manage to maintain strong supportive relationships? Do we have a sense of meaning and purpose? Are we fully engaged in our daily lives? So all of those components are really important for our well-being as well. So we know it's multi-dimensional. That's the first thing. The second thing to understand is that well-being is actually different to different people. And that's okay. So we all need to find our own ways that enable us to build well-being within ourselves. There seems to be a great understanding and awareness now of the need to look after student and staff and whole community well-being within our school environment. So the readiness, the willingness, the desire is definitely there and very genuine from schools. What we hear most from them is they know the information's out there, they know they're keen, but they don't know where to start. And the truth is that that differs for every school. You know, context is absolutely king in this game. So what works for one school doesn't necessarily work for another one. So it's really all we can do is share with schools the processes that we have found to work across really diverse schools, and those processes they can then take and shape and put into their school culture. And I think really that's the only way we'll ever get embedded change as well. And the other thing that we are learning from schools is, in order to make transformational change happen in our mental health spectrum here in New Zealand, the most critical pathway to change is getting schools to share the things that they're trying to do. And in the community of practice here in Christchurch, once that group of people had actually created sufficient trust to really openly share what they were doing, what they tried, what had backfired and what they were struggling with, I think that's when we really started to see a regional shift and regional traction, that actually between all of these schools, if they're really open to sharing and being that bit vulnerable of saying, we're not sure if this bit's going to work, but we're going to try that, that has made, that will make all the difference. So I think it's really important for schools to have a forum for sharing. So very often when schools, sometimes, schools feel so desperate to find a solution to their student wellbeing problems and challenges that they might try and buy in a curriculum, an overseas curriculum, or some kind of new handbook on what how you teach wellbeing in your schools. And actually we have amazing resources here in New Zealand anyway in our health and PE curriculum. So we are always at pains to explain to schools that just having the curriculum, the taught curriculum on wellbeing, that explicit teaching isn't really enough. That actually to make a real shift in our student population's youth outcomes, we need to take a whole school approach to building wellbeing. And so it's not enough to think about just the explicit taught curriculum. You also have to think about the implicit, what we call the caught curriculum. How your everyday connections with students and teachers, how they have an impact on wellbeing. And so you can think of just that explicit wellbeing curriculum as a really important part in your overall wellbeing plan. But you've also got to look at how every single aspect of the school culture stacks up in terms of wellbeing. Do your prize givings and your weekly parent communication and your enrolment policies and your staff meetings, all of these things, do they actually grow wellbeing, or are they acting as a barrier to wellbeing? So I think it's really what we're trying to do with this whole school wellbeing approach is take a systems approach and get educators and whānau to realise that we really need to look at the whole system rather than just one small part of it.